And I think that usually means we're live. Hey guys, Professor Bill, Comic Book University. And I say, let there be light. That doesn't really help because it's the middle of the day. F it. Let's just do it like this. What's going on? DKN, how's things?
Not much. I mean, things are good. Keeping busy, making comics, which is a weird thing to come out of my mouth after reviewing them for so long.
Right? Right? Now we shall be reviewing you. So you got a Kickstarter going. It looks like something behind you.
Yes, yeah. So, Kickstarter for a comic book project, Area 51, the Helix Project, which is a sci-fi noir comic book series based in a 1970s UFO hysteric America. The Cold War is looming over the heads of the entire world, while the desperate United States government is launching like this covert ops experiment that'll graft the DNA of extraterrestrial beings and put them or graft them onto soldiers for wartime use. So that can range anywhere from like espionage to reconnaissance to physical combat, right? Like when you're able to have that level of control on your physical biology, I mean, the practical applications are almost boundless. And so, obviously, with something like this, the Helix Project has the potential to end the Cold War early, right? Because as we know, it didn't end for another 20 or so years, and we're stuck here in the 70s, early 70s. So, the big question to ask at this point, though, is what cost is this coming at and to who, right? That's not something that we usually question, although we're approaching that kind of classic super soldier archetype, I think, in a different way. And we're really trying to kind of engage the features of sci-fi noir while also deconstructing these societal concepts of heroism and who we allow to be depicted as a hero, regardless of their actions. And we follow Kent, which is an homage to the ever famous Clark Kent, Superman, who is a child of both worlds, and he's trying to learn how to navigate this tumultuous space. And we're going to be encountering these really highly relatable themes that are personal, like identity and mental health and balance. And we really begin to approach questions as to how he's going to reconcile with humanity as someone who feels unwelcome by them. And we'll encounter everyday people, we'll encounter psychopaths and things not of this planet, as he discovers a little bit more about how the Helix Project has impacted him and who he is, and further on, who he will become in the future. And as the story progresses, speaking of future, he'll have to come to blows with some really incredibly trying decisions that are going to totally define the person that he becomes. And the thing that he has to ask himself is he going to become a product of the circumstances that he has been given or something else of his own design? So this story is going to be deeply personal, as much as I really want to tell something that's going to keep everybody on their toes and surprise them and be wowed with what I think is spectacular art, if I do say so myself.
Nice. Who's your artist?
So I'm working with an artist out of Brazil. His name is Marcelo Salazar. You might have seen his work through various comics with Dynamite or Titan Comics. He's actually worked with the likes of Jimmy Palmiotti and Justin Gray on a sort of crime comic as well. And the colorist that I'm working with is also out of Brazil. His name is Marcio Freire, and he is brilliant. And let me tell you, I know when we've talked about this kind of privately way back, I was telling you how crazy it was trying to find the right colorist, because it is a process. And something that I think comic book people don't often talk about is how integral every cog in the machine is. Because if you get the wrong colorist or the wrong inker, it's going to totally change how the finished product is going to come out. And for me, it was finding a colorist that can not only sort of help to render Marcelo's pencils and inks, but play the role of the sort of cinematographer in film, right? What color palettes are we using? How is that affecting the sort of tone and the emotions of the scenes and things like that? So it was a process, man. I went through, I think, 30 or 40 different colorists throughout the course of finding the right creative team.
Mm. And you are fairly anal retentive in that regards, aren't you?
Yeah, just a little bit.
So tell me about some of that process, because I know that you are, if I were to say picky, it would be seriously putting it lightly.
Yes, I am. I'd like to say that I have an eye for story, but people that aren't me might refer to it in a different way. So the process is really interesting because obviously when you're funding your own comic, you don't have a publisher, it becomes a very investment heavy sort of thing for the creator on the front end. And so at that point, we're going for the pencil and inker who just conveniently happen to be the same person, colorist, letterer, and then there's obvious printing costs and things of that nature. So for me, knowing that I have a very editorial eye to approaching story, very critical, as you have sort of thrust upon my shoulders, which by thrust I mean just acknowledge the fact I'm a critical guy. I decided that I was going to make an attempt to edit my own comic, which is totally different, and it's something that I don't recommend to anybody because it's often better to get somebody else with clear eyes. But my problem is one,
And you are also an editor. That is, I mean, to be fair, that is what you do. But yeah, you do acknowledge, as do we both, that it's a dangerous prospect.
Oh yeah, 100%. And yeah, like you said, I mean, I've done freelance editing for a little while now, and even my reviews on YouTube tend to take a more editorial lean to them and how I discuss stuff. But my approach was, I'm going to finish the script, I'm going to take time off. Eyes completely off this book for a good period of time so I can come at it somewhat fresh and give it my best sort of attention. And the one thing I can promise for those of you that know me from my channel or from one of the discussions one of the few discussions I've had with Bill, is that I bring a very critical eye to those reviews, and I'm bringing it tenfold to this book. There are actually times where I have to sort of lean back when I'm sort of providing notes on layouts from my artist, where I have to think, okay, is this a battle worth fighting? Is this the thing that I have to really push to change, the interpretation of, or do I have to let it slide? Because I've noticed myself kind of leaning in on very picky things. But so yeah, regarding the actual process of the book, and I can actually show you this really cool image that we've set up here that is on the Kickstarter page that sort of gives you an idea of what the process is going to look like using this one image step by step. So I'll share my screen up here and we can kind of walk through it in a way. Chrome tab and
There we go. Got it.
Yeah. So this is the 4th page of this issue, and it's mostly just an establishing shot. We're setting up the scene, we're setting up the mood, but as we continue to sort of zoom in and get more intimate, it's going to start keying you a little bit more into the character and into the circumstance. So I actually can kind of go about explaining to you how we set this up, because I write in full script, which is one of the many different styles of writing comic book script, where I am probably unnecessarily specific in what I want, and sometimes it can be it can definitely make the collaborative process a little bit of a longer road, right? Because you're giving it to somebody for them to interpret, but you may also have a very specific vision in your head, and you have to kind of begin to reconcile what things you need to specifically be the thing that is in your head and what things you need to kind of let move. But fortunately, Marcelo does a good job at capturing what I'm describing. So to give you an example, all the way to the left of this page, those are the layouts. So it's basic structures. If there are characters in there, you'll get an idea for their gestures on a very grand level, and usually some big sort of schematics of the background and things in relation to each other, the camera angle, things like that. Then you get on into the pencils and inks, and you get into some of the detailing here, and what you're going to be establishing depth-wise, what things are going to be foreground, background, and then you get to the finished colors. And colors can also help to establish sort of detail and texture like inks can, but in a little bit broader way. And it uses the color palette to not only provide lighting to the scene, right, and help you as a reader sort of have your eye drawn to the right spots, but it can also help to evoke mood, right? So you have this instance here where it's getting kind of dark outside, right? And it's sort of indicative of the end of the day. People are tired. This is New York City, right? So it's gonna it's very intricate, and it's not something that I think a lot of people always kind of try to discuss, especially, like I said, the importance of the colorist over everything. And so if we go through, for example, I have the script. I don't know if does it let me share two things at once.
Why don't you try?
All right. So can I? Oh,
Not a problem.
I don't know if it'll let me do two things at once.
No,
but
it bounced the other, but put the other one up.
The script.
Yep.
Okay. Cool.
There we go.
So, at the top of the page, this is how I format it. You'll usually have general notes. So sometimes you'll have something about the layout of the page, sort of what the panels are going to be doing in relation to each other, whether or not there's a sort of motif in the coloring or in the visual acting. I didn't have any. At this point, I had already seen a couple pages that my artist had done for me. So I was like, okay, let's give him a little bit more space. So I say, layout is your choice, Marcelo. And then you get into the panel. It's a long shot, right? And as you could see, that top establishing shot that was on that panel was big, broad. You're getting a sense of the scenery. You have the Empire State Building, right?
Can you see Chillmonger's comment? Zoom in a little, lady.
Let's see. I don't know if this software can zoom in, but oh, we did it.
Hey.
Now can I sort of sidestep here? Can everybody see that okay? I don't know if it's super well centered. I wonder if I can do that to help at all.
Don't go crazy with it.
Okay. I don't know if everybody can see it, but basically, so we have that. Actually, honestly, yeah, okay.
It's visible.
Cool. So panel 1, long shot. We're in a busy center in Manhattan. See references of 1970s Times Square in parentheses. And the sun is almost finished setting. This will allow us to focus on the vanity of the bright lights and the electricity of New York City. The city lights, massive signs, a lot of hustle and bustle. This should be a pretty wide shot from the perspective of our narrator walking down the streets, who we soon learn to be Kent Armstrong, our protagonist. And then, the image that I've shown you is without letters. It's a little bit more sort of background behind the scenes. And there's narration there. As much as they want to hide it, neon lights distract us from the ugly bricks behind them. Panel 2, the full shot, vertical panel. I'm sorry, this is page 5. Wait a minute. I'm off my kilter here. Page 4. This is the one that you've just seen. Okay, sorry about that. So this one, I did actually give a page description. 3 horizontal strips in decreasing size of widescreen. Caption, New York City, evening, 30 years later. Panel 1, wide shot of the Empire State Building. Looking up at it from the street, it's astonishing. A work of architectural greatness, a monument to the American dream. Any buildings in the periphery of the shot should pale in comparison to it. It is also the early evening. The sun is setting. The sun and surrounding buildings should frame the marvel that is the Empire State Building. The panel should take up the entire top third of the page. Narration. There's something powerful about a symbol. The world embraces so many of them. Then you go down into the second panel, right? A newsstand in the city. Close-up shot on the magazine and periodical shelves displaying comic books. One of them, a cover image of a powerful man resembling Superman. Feel free to homage a late 70s cover if you'd like, but make sure it's different enough. Don't feel like dealing with legal issues. The covers of some of the magazines surrounding it should read something like Hero, Truth, Justice, and the American Way, so on and so forth. Finishing the sentence of the narration, especially when they look like you. Panel 3, a human Caucasian hand crumples up a copy of the comic we saw on the stand in the panel above. The hand is aggressive. We should see the veins in the wrist and the musculature in full contraction. Big question is, what happens when they don't?
Throw up the image again.
Yeah, absolutely. So the big thing to sort of key into here is an obvious level of animosity, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what you'll be able to see here on that bottom panel where he's crumpling up the image, right? You see in the pencils and inks here in the center of the line, they're essentially sort of spoofs or ways for me to reference Superman without getting sued. Mm-hmm. And Superman is in a way sort of spiritually going to be a big thematic focus because we're discussing concepts of identity and what is represented and who is represented and considered a hero, right? And obviously one of the things to kind of bring or to discuss is, well, people accepted Superman. Why? Because he looked like everybody else, right? He looked like the majority, or those who are sort of higher up on the social food chain. And so,
He looks like a white male.
right, exactly. And even though, Kent's kind of crumpling it up, one thing I can sort of tease with you is we're talking about extraterrestrials who are able to manipulate themselves and shapeshift. So
Mhm.
perhaps this is not his native form, and perhaps he resents the fact that he has to maintain a form that is not natural or not native to himself.
So a little Martian Manhunter thrown in there also.
A little bit of Martian Manhunter action. You
One
can
of the
tell.
things I like is that I'm sorry. One of the things I like is that you did mention in that first panel of this page that you wanted the first of the three panels to take up the entire top third. But
Mhm,
what you didn't suggest, according to what I'd seen, is for the panels to get smaller, therefore more focused, keying in on what we're seeing. Since we go from a wide, far away shot, very general, it could be anything, to oh, we're going to go to this newsstand. Oh, we're going to go to this comic book and this hand off panel,
mhm.
crumpling this comic, giving the emotion and whatnot. I love the panel layout of that, and if that's Marcelo's initiative to do that, I'm going to say he's got a pretty good eye for this.
Yeah, he's really good. So the only thing I did mention at the top of the page were the 3 horizontal strips in decreasing size. But
Oh, yeah. Okay.
where I definitely give Marcelo credit though, and it's sort of an unsung um sort of quality to the visual storyteller, and it's the way he plays with the panel gutters. And for those of you that don't know what panel gutters is, it's literally just the space in between the panels.
Hmm.
And some artists will fill it with actual like bleed of the internal panel itself. They might do colors. And what he does is he plays with the sort of night sky, that blackness. There's a little bit of a cloud texture in there you can see on the sort of middle right, and it helps you to really focus the eye in on those images as they become, decreasing, and as we zoom in. So
Hmm.
it's not something you really think about, and it's in a way just such an unsung hero of the visual storytelling, because it's helping to articulate the effect and
Mm.
enunciate sort of what we're going for there. And it's a lot of sort of decisions like that where Marcelo really really shines. um, that just they do a lot of work, but it's something that I don't think enough people are going to compliment him on, because it seems so minute, or it seems so sort of
It's background.
yeah.
It's something that, yeah, unless you have a critical eye, you're not going to notice something like that. But the trick is you're noticing it regardless because it's
Mhm.
the stuff that you don't not see that's
Yeah.
actually helping. Case in point, like you said, the idea that there's that I'm pointing like they can see what I'm pointing at. The clouds in the upper right hand corner of that middle panel that you just suggested, it helps to differentiate that, hey, look, background, here's the image you're looking at. It
Mhm.
crops it for you. If that wasn't there, then it is all just going to bleed into each other. It is going to be harder to understand. So while this may be something that people aren't going to notice, the trick is that you do notice what you're not noticing. It just feels natural.
Yeah.
It's the exact same as, like, let's say, staggering panels from left to right of each other in order to actually see which panel you're supposed to go on. Am I supposed to, start reading into the next page from the top panel, or do I just read this page first and then read this one? Do I have a long panel over here, so I actually go read this one, this one, this one, then read this one, and go on? It's that flow, which you might
Mhm.
not get credit for most people, but every single person recognizes and appreciates it, at least on a subconscious level. I want to
100.
point out your case in point, what's behind you. I'm going to remove this for a hot second. That panel, the logo and image behind you. Hey, who was responsible for that?
Yeah, so it's a buddy of ours. The logo is my buddy and a friend of yours. His name's Joey Schweickler. He's a host of his YouTube channel, Joe's Geek Show. A big shout out to him. He's the absolute man. Um, it just came down to a super great move. Joey kind of needed something. I needed something. And it's like, okay, Joey's a great graphic designer. And for any of you that might need some help, maybe with graphic design, logo design, or whatever, check him out. You can follow him on YouTube using that name over yonder, and reach out because he's awesome, super easy to work with. And he is damn good at what he does. And the thing that I love about him, real quick, just as I continue to kind of profess my love to this man, is that he will sort of educate you on the steps every way through, which makes, I think, myself as a client, as somebody who's looking for graphics, a little bit more educated and a little bit more reasonable at what I know to look for in the future. But yeah, he did a brilliant job. Absolutely captured the sort of tone of it, and everything we were going for sure.
Joey also has a channel. Definitely go and check that out. That one I didn't put in the link description. I should have had the forethought to do that, but you can see right there, Joe's Geek Show. He actually has the apostrophe where it belongs. So go give Joe a check. Dude's especially good with the flash, but he's also really good with the costumes, and he actually cares about what he's doing as far as editing and whatnot. So give the guy a look.
One of the nicest guys on the internet, for sure.
This is true also. So who's this book going to appeal to specifically?
So I've written this book for a slightly more mature audience. I would say young adult into adult. And I've talked about it times with you and many times in public. My favorite comics, especially as I've gotten older, are the sort of old school Vertigo books or like modern day Image, where you can really tell something important and talk about something that is very real and something that I think a lot of people can connect to, but do it in such a cool landscape that is going to draw you in and keep you entertained, right? Because at the end of the day, I'm not making this book to preach to people. I'm making this book to entertain. And that's something that I'm really pushing. So I would recommend that this book be read by somebody, I would say at least 14 and up. But if somebody skews slightly younger, I would say maybe get a parent's permission. It's not super, super violent or grotesque, but there's definitely some very mature themes in this book. And there are a couple of visuals that very much coincide and push those themes that I think might be tough for somebody younger to handle. And it's a fan of anybody who honestly wants to read something from a fresh voice, who cares about comics and who is, and I've talked about it a couple times, Frank, a little bit frustrated with the big two. And so I figure now it's time to put my money where my mouth is and do my thing. And, this is where I came up with this book. And sci-fi, noir are two incredibly fruitful genres with such vast toolboxes. There's so much you can do with them to not only entertain, but to sort of talk about things that are real problems or things that we can relate to in very specific ways. And that's kind of what we went for here. And you brought up the little Martian Manhunter thing. I'd be lying by omission if I didn't say I just haven't wanted a great Martian Manhunter comic in the last couple of years. So,
So, yeah, I'm enjoying the hell out of this, guys. The link is in the description. Shout out to my mods for showing up, and hey, everybody, and everybody in the chat in general. So the link is in the description below. Link to Dark Knight Nation's channel. Link to the Kickstarter process. I did not catch you in the beginning. So how many days left do you have on the Kickstarter?
We'll show them on the screen. We have 9 days left, ladies and gentlemen. So Sunday, October 4th at 9 p.m. Eastern is the closeout time. We do also have a couple stretch goals if we can happen to crack them. The first one being the most attainable. I know it's kind of small here, $5,800. We're going to win Boss the Cover. So the plan is for the stretch goals, if I am lucky enough to hit them, is to pretty much provide free upgrades for backers as just a massive thank you for pledging to this project. I've talked to Bill about how frustrated I am with the way comic books market and present the product, and it's not something that I want to perpetuate. And frankly, it is at the cost of my dollars, and it's something I'm satisfied by doing because I want to generate a good product. So the book is 24 pages of actual story. I'm not soliciting 24 pages and counting the covers. 24 pages of actual story, no ads, printed on premium thick stock, both the cover and the interior page. I want it something to be something that's going to hold up, right? Because I make jokes about how my end goal is to become the next Alan Moore, just less further down into some random cave deep in California. Uh, but I want this to be a book that somebody looks at 10 years from now. It's like, okay, this was the start of this guy doing his thing. And I want it to be something memorable and just generally to deliver a product that's worth the faith and the monetary contribution that people decide to put into it. So this project has been a learning experience for sure. But it's also been a way for me to generate the product that I've been frustrated that I haven't gotten from the big two publishers. And I feel like I'm doing a pretty decent job at that. And so I hope that you guys, decide to give it a look. Again, it means a lot. And I want to thank you guys for watching. Obviously, Bill, thank you for giving me the platform to talk about the book. It really does mean a lot. You having that faith in me.
It's all good. All right, guys, so definitely consider checking this out. Again, 9 days left. You are one CH away from goal.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to seeing that goal met. All right, guys, yeah, go check out the all the possible ways to pledge to this, and let's actually get this started. How many issues do you have in mind right now?
So I've been teeter-toggling on 5 and 6, mostly depending on the success of the book.
Mhm.
And I've plotted it out in a way that I think that either 5 or 6 will work. I'm definitely trying to be conscious of making sure that the amount of sort of installments of issues is matched to the amount of story and the way that I can pace the story, less than it is to say, oh, I have a 6-issue miniseries. I don't care what the number count of issues are. My biggest thing, just in relation to superficially having a number,
Mhm.
I want to make sure that the story is well paced and it's a story that's packaged well. And I see Mark has a question for me here. If the goal is met, what is the estimated release date? All going well, I would like to ship this product out from my hands by the end of November. Things have kind of slowed down because of my printer is in China, and they just emailed us and said, oh, there's a Chinese national holiday the first week of October, so things are going to get pushed back a week. But with that being said, I've decided to spend money out of my own pocket to pay for the express shipping so that I can make sure that I deliver this in time to the people that believed in it. Again, at the end of the day, my biggest priority in this book is generating an experience for the reader and for the consumer, and to make sure that they felt like their dollar is well spent, both in the physical product, but also in what they get out of this story. Because I'm an artist, I'm a storyteller, and my strengths lie in, I think, being able to communicate things to people in a very relatable way. So that's what I'm really hoping to do here. I want to make this an experience for everybody above anything else. And if that comes at the cost of a broke college kid's dollar, then that's what it'll be.
Nice. All right, looking forward to it. Also, final note: noticing that Taylor Esposito is the letterer, which is hot because I think everybody's familiar with his work. So I've said many times that the letterer can make or break a comic book. So this looks like it's going to be made. All
Mm.
right, guys, definitely go and check out the Kickstarter project. There are 9 days left. That goal is one CH away from being acquired. So check it out. Talk to you guys later. Trevor and Professor Bill signing out. Comic Book University. Class dismissed.
Thank you, guys.